At 3 in the morning local time, the air defense radars in the United Arab Emirates lit up like a Christmas tree. 4 cruise missiles inbound from Iran headed for a country that is officially not in this war. On the same morning, the United States Navy announced it was going to start escorting every commercial ship through the Strait of Hormuz. So the mainstream media looked at this and said, tensions rise. And that is the dumbest thing I have heard all week. And I'm going to explain why. So, Trump signs a thing overnight called Project Freedom. The name itself is kind of funny because Trump is the only man alive who can name a military operation like he's naming a monster truck and have nobody in his administration tell him no. Not even Marco Rubio. By the way, remember that I have a blog called The Power Pundit in which I talk about geopolitics, international markets, the AI race between the United States and China, and a couple more things that I can't say anywhere else. Link in description. But anyway, here's what Project Freedom actually is. Starting Monday morning, Middle East time, U.S. Navy guided missile destroyers, the kind of ship that costs about $2 billion and carries enough firepower to ruin the day of an entire country, will physically escort foreign flagged commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz. The destroyers are already inside the Arabian Gulf. They sailed through the strait last week. Nobody fired a shot at them because the people who would normally fire shots at them know exactly what happens next if they do. So Trump announced it on Truth Social with the framing he wanted you to hear. Countries from all over the world, almost all of them not involved in the dispute, asked the United States if it could free up their ships locked in the strait. I'm going to say that again, slowly. Trump is not telling you he's doing a Navy escort. Trump is telling you that the entire planet sent him a helpline call and he, being a benevolent guy, is taking the call. So the countries are the customers. The Navy is the room service. And Iran is the guy in the parking lot yelling, trying to annoy the customers in some way or another. So Trump, this is a guy who, let's remember, in his first administration ordered the Soleimani strike and then watched Iran fire some symbolic missiles at an empty airbase and call it a day. But the Iran problem did not get solved in 2020. It got paused. Trump knows it got paused. The administration around him knows it got just paused. But this time around, the entire policy is built on the assumption that the regime will only respect force. Even so, within 8 hours of Project Freedom being announced, the Iranians answered. They put 2 drones into an empty Emirati tanker called Baraka near Fujairah. They hit a bulk carrier off the Iranian coast for good measure, and they fired 4 cruise missiles at the UAE, a country whose entire foreign policy can be summarized as, please leave us out of this. Which brings us to the Ayatollah's actual problem. The mainstream media is calling all of this escalation on the theory that an American Navy escort and an Iranian missile strike on a non-belligerent neighbor are somehow 2 flavors of the same ice cream. And they are not. These are 2 different things. One of them is a destroyer carrying out a humanitarian shipping mission. The other is a regime firing at a country that is not in the war. If you cannot tell those apart, you should not be employed as a journalist. Now, imagine, if you will, the Persian Gulf as a neighborhood. On one side of the strait, you have the United Arab Emirates. The UAE is the guy who used to live in a tent, won the geological lottery, and instead of buying a fleet of gold-plated jet skis, decided to build a cyberpunk forest in the middle of a furnace. So the UAE looked at a 120-degree sand dune and said, you know what this needs? An indoor ski resort and a branch of the Louvre. So they have high-speed rail, Mars probes, and a national vibe that says, We have decided that having a functioning economy is more fun than yelling at clouds. So across the street, you have Iran. Iran is the neighbor who lives in a house where the plumbing has not worked since 1979, and they refuse to call a plumber because they are convinced the plumber is a CIA agent sent to steal their spiritual purity. Iran is run by a group of morons whose entire policy platform can be summarized as being extremely grumpy about everything. They have spent 40 years trying to convince the world that the pinnacle of human achievement is a very specific type of frown. So the Ayatollah did not fire missiles at the UAE this morning because the UAE is a neighbor. They fired missiles at the UAE because the UAE is a walking, breathing, existential crisis for the Islamic Republic. The regime's entire brand is built on one desperate lie. You can be a good Muslim or you can have nice things, but you cannot have both because the nice things are poisoned by the great Satan. And then the UAE shows up, sipping an iced latte, signing the Abraham Accords with Israel, partnering with Washington, hosting the Pentagon's AI initiatives, and proving that you can keep the faith, keep the culture, and still participate in the modern world without the universe exploding. So to Tehran, the UAE is a neon sign that says your founding ideology is a very expensive hobby. Every time a new startup opens in Dubai, an angel gets its wings and a mullah loses its mind. So yes, the regime fires at the UAE. Of course it does, because the UAE is the proof that the last 40 years of revolutionary suffering were a self-inflicted wound for nothing. That is front A. Now, meanwhile, on the other side of the Arabian Peninsula, the Saudis did something the cameras missed. Riyadh today restored an oil pipeline that runs across the entire peninsula, from the eastern oil fields to Red Sea ports on the western coast. It carries millions of barrels a day. It does not touch the Strait of Hormuz. It does not pass through any waterway Iran can threaten. According to Regional Energy Desk reporting, the Saudis are now pumping something close to their full export book through that pipeline. So if the number is right, the choke point Iran spent 40 years using as leverage just stopped being a choke point. And the Saudis announced the workaround on the same day the Americans announced the escort. So this is the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman picking a side, not in a press conference, not on Twitter, but with a literal pipeline. He looked at Tehran, he looked at Washington, he looked at the indoor ski resort across the Gulf, and he picked the side with the destroyers and the air conditioning. So the Iranians watched it happen in real time and could not say a word, because the alternative was admitted in public that the straight card is gone. Which brings us to Europe, where, I swear to God, this is real. The Chancellor of Germany decided this was the week to be funny, it seems. This is front C. Friedrich Merz, in the middle of a war where the only navy on earth running escorts is American, in the middle of a corridor where the only country writing checks for the AI infrastructure is American, in the middle of a Pacific clock where the only country that can deter China is American, he looked at the cameras this week and said, and I quote this insanity, "The Americans do not have enough missiles themselves." That is what he said, out loud, with his actual mouth. I want you to picture this. 4 Iranian cruise missiles are landing in the Persian Gulf, flying toward Dubai. The United States Navy is parked in the strait. Trump is on Truth Social posting that countries from all over the world are calling him for help. And the Chancellor of Germany, A country that has been protected by American tanks since 1949 decides this is the moment to do open mic night about American missile inventory. So yeah, the audacity of this is its own kind of art. I mean, I would love if the United States removes all its troops from Germany, but not out of spite, but out of respecting the bravado of MERS and the European Union at large. Let them deal with all this stuff on their own. But indeed, Trump's response to Europe this week has been magnificent in its pettiness. The countries that showed up for the Iran war got rewarded. The United Kingdom got Scottish whiskey tariffs lifted. Italy volunteered 4 Navy ships to clear mines and got told it was on the good list. The countries that did not show up are getting individually invoiced. Spain got told its troops are coming home. Germany got told the Tomahawk deployment is cancelled and 100,000 troops are coming off the continent. So MERS mocked the Americans about missiles, and the Americans removed the missiles. That is the kind of poetic justice you usually only get in screenplays. So now stack the 3 fronts. The regime in Tehran is firing missiles at the one country in the Gulf that proves the regime's ideology is a lie and that they are batshit crazy. The Saudis are pumping their oil over land because they have decided to skip this trade altogether. And the Germans are mocking the Americans in the same week the Americans are removing every reason for Germany to feel safe. Iran fired at the UAE because the UAE is the proof that yes, a Gulf country can coexist and cooperate with Israel and the United States. The Americans are running escorts because the UAE is the model the entire region might actually copy if Tehran loses one more chess piece. And the cardboard Ayatollah knows it, and that is why the missiles are flying. Now let's watch what the regime does between now and then, because corner authoritarian regimes do unpredictable things, and this one has spent 40 years building its identity on being dangerous. Watch which European country is the first to volunteer ships to the operation, because that country just earned itself an upgrade. And watch May 14th when Trump and Xi sit down in Beijing, because the entire Saudi, Emirati, American, Korean corridor that just got built around Iran is going to be sitting on that table next to Taiwan, and Xi knows exactly what he's looking at. To read my deeper analysis on geopolitics and markets, go check my new blog, The Power Pundit. I can say things there that I'm not allowed to say anywhere else. Link in the description. And share this video with your family and friends so they know what's really going on. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm The Power Pundit. Much love and bliss.